My name is Shahid, and I'm an architect planner with Moriyama and Tashima Architects. Moriyama and Tashima Architects, we're a sort of planning architectural landscape firm based in Toronto. We're multidisciplinary. We do a number of different cultural, educational, institutional buildings and placemaking, both in Canada and in the Middle East. So we were brought in earlier this year to work on this very prestigious project, which is integrating Education City. And Education City is really a campus like no other. We've been faced with a lot of different issues and challenges to try and stitch this and make it the place that it should be. And we're really only one component of a greater team. We're made up of engineers, art consultants, signage consultants, landscape architects, and really the greater stakeholder community that makes up Education City, QF, ASTAD, and all the various branch campuses and other facilities that are here on campus. We have a methodology that we're trying to follow. It involves us reaching out to the various stakeholders here on campus. It involves us running through various options to try and work out designs and work out metrics so that we can provide a roadmap for Education City to move forward with in a successful and efficient manner. I think you've all seen the Sidra tree show up in the various architectural projects as an icon, as an image. And the Sidra tree is really an important sort of image to sort of aspire to. It provides respite from the sun. Historically, culturally, it's been a place where poets, educators have met under and shared knowledge. So this presentation is made up of 5 different components. The overview, sort of the evolution, which Isasaki's office has run through, which I'll sort of tap into. There's the population aspect, the integration strategies that we've tried to look at and are in the process of evaluating and formulating, and then a number of key integration concepts. So I think as many of the speakers have touched upon, there's a lot of important issues that come forward when looking at the master plan. One is about building connections. It's about ensuring human comfort, ensuring a compact and efficient campus that is easily accessible, sustainability, and the proper siting and planning that comes along with it, and of course, energy conservation. We also looked at a number of policy frameworks and strategic plans. I think, a question was asked earlier, why so many master plan revisions and iterations? And I think it's the nature of how the campus has been built, but I think it's also a reflection of innovation. I think innovation isn't something static, it's dynamic, it changes through the years, and I think to the credit of QF, they want to upkeep and maintain this innovation edge. And I think the campus and the master plan, as a result, needs to be dynamic and reflect these changes. So really, in order to reflect these changes, and how we've approached it is we've established a series of guiding principles, which essentially is all about placemaking here at Education City. And it's not so much more about placemaking on campus, but it's also about understanding the greater reach that it is sited within Doha, within Qatar. We're not only looking at the strategic documents that were provided to us, but also really reflecting the strategic vision of Qatar. And this really has to do with ensuring sustainability. We're sort of in a new fiscal reality. We're in a new sort of era, which is very different from the era of the 70s, where there was a dependency on the car, where there was a dependency on sort of transportation, the usage of water. All these realities have changed. There's a sort of a more, there's a predisposition towards walking. There's a predisposition of conserving resources. And these are all sort of the concerns that we are looking at and hoping to bring to this master plan integrator, or integration, I should say. So what is sustainable growth? Part of the sort of the terms that were given to us were that there's a project area, which is roughly 1,450 hectares. It's a very large site. It's bifurcated by a very well-used road with the north and south campus. There were a series of land categories. These range from lands that have been built upon with sort of the branded architecture that you've seen earlier today. And there are areas that have been planned but no buildings, and there are areas that have no buildings and no plans. So we've had to sort of stitch all these various concerns and terms together into a integrated plan. And as I mentioned, there's also different fiscal realities. I think in today's climate, we're also looking at ways to leverage assets, leverage land, and leverage innovation so that perhaps they are third-party developers who can take QF's hand and move forward together in a shared and common vision for the campus. And what this involves is also respecting and ensuring certain core principles. The outer ring here shows how there was a predominance of car, but what we're seeing now is that perhaps the car can come. We're not saying that it's going to be a car-free campus, but there is this idea that perhaps it can be a pedestrian-oriented campus, which means that the car could stop at the car parks. From the car parks, you would get onto the QF tram. The QF tram would take you to points where you could either walk, bike, and then reach your destination. So this is a paradigm shift in how perhaps the original master plan was envisioned, which was perhaps more dependent on the car. Again, showing you a shift in thinking and approach. So really, this slide summarizes some of the concepts that I've just touched upon. There's this sort of bifurcated campus. Part of the challenge is how do you stitch this together, because after all, it is one campus. It's also about minimizing your sort of internal traffic. This is done with the QF tram, e-bikes, walking. But with this also comes the understanding that you have to provide a comfortable walking environment. The climate is such that unless you actually provide this environment, people won't walk. This drawing here just shows you sort of, the world that we live in, and the world is predominantly car-oriented. It's about reclaiming some of this space back so that, it's not necessarily this abyss on one end and you, the pedestrian, are walking on this 1 meter right-of-way. So it's really about expanding this right-of-way so that you have a more comfortable pedestrian environment. And in the climate of Doha, you want to have this climate shaded, you want to have areas of respite, think of the Sidra tree. You know, how can you provide a very sort of comfortable walking environment for this to happen in? So as we saw earlier today, the campus master plan has gone through various iterations. It's something I'll just skim over here, but this is revision 19. As you can see from the previous slide, you know, the campus has grown. There are new areas. There are new areas of expansion. There are new buildings, and the reality has changed. And I think this is normal. Master plans have forecasts of 5, 10, 15, up to 50 years, but I think the reality is even within those decades can change, and the master plan itself needs to be flexible in order to reflect this. So really, when you look at the campus and you try and understand what can or cannot be done, there needs to be an understanding of your cohorts, the metrics on the site. We ran a survey, and it was a very cursory survey. We plan on having more. So, you know, the margin of error here could be very high, but it does give you a cross-section that helped us understand some of the issues here. So, 76% of the students live and commute and come onto campus. A lot of them wanted a campus that was far more walkable. Granted, much of the campus has hoarding, so a lot of this will be remedied in the long term, but you know, they do want a walkable campus. This is also very interesting. Only 22% of the students that we surveyed actually spent over 10 hours on campus. So these are opportunities. So whenever you do a survey, whenever you kind of look at your population distribution, we are trying to find opportunities that can be leveraged into areas of infill, or perhaps areas where you can build connectivity or hubs. So this is the internal population, being the population that resides and works and lives on campus. Then there's the external visitors, people who come and visit for a short time only to return to their original destination. And what we tried to do here is we used a lot of the data that was provided to us by QF and USTAD. We researched other documents and policy papers, and we tried to understand how the campus was being used. So the chart here shows existing and planned for this precinct over here, precinct 1. This is sort of the existing, planned, and proposed. So if one were to add growth, how much capacity would that area have to absorb with the allocation of new buildings or new hubs, new uses? And this then becomes an asset that the campus could leverage. And really what we're trying to do here is build and intensify areas on campus. And I can run through these quickly. These go through the various precincts. 2 is by the southeast car park. You know, the area could be buffered by additional study space. There could be additional living because of residences. And then, obviously, once you do that, you would have to look at it from a design point of view in terms of how that would look. This is Al Shakab. So it would remain a sports and recreational area, and the amount of people wouldn't necessarily change. These are hypothetical scenarios that we're just proposing, because ultimately you have to base your design with numbers and metrics in order for it to have leverage. This is P4, which was the Qatar Academy. This is by the golf course. We're sort of bumping up the work area there. And I'll show you some concepts a little bit later on as per how some of these numbers then get translated into actual design work. This is up by Sidra. There's the hospital there, and it's primarily medical, but again, there's a hope that one could add additional live-work scenarios, mixed-use opportunities to make those areas more robust. This is inclusive of QNCC, the convention center, and the mixed-use commercial area. Again, it's envisioned as a mixed-use area. It would be a cultural, retail, commercial hub. It would be drawing people for convention reasons, and in itself, it can be used as an asset, because I think moving in the future, you want to create these, brand these assets so that you are actually bringing people in from Doha, and Education City is more than just a campus. It becomes a component with a city, with a municipal element, where it becomes a public amenity that is well used by the Al Rayyan community and by the Doha community. P9, this is envisioned primarily as a mixed-use residential, and P10, which is a large plot of land which has really been unplanned and undeveloped, and we've proposed sort of a mixed-use development up there that may be developed in the future. And this is housing, Sidra housing, that would pretty much remain the same. This is housing and mixed-use neighborhood related to Sidra Hospital. Again, showing you that currently there's nothing there, but what is envisioned there is a live-work scenario with some mixed-use opportunities. Again, all these numbers were sort of taken from a matrix that provided base population numbers by building type and by area, and we collated this and took this forward. So some of the integration strategies, a lot of this has to do with transportation. I'm happy to say I'm sort of the architect planner, but we have a lot of transportation engineers, and they've had to really kind of work innovative and interesting ways to make this happen, because we are sort of, Doha experiences a lot of traffic problems, and here we're trying to sort of say, reduce your dependency on the car and build a dependency on public ways of using transportation to navigate the campus. So again, these are some of the current land uses, and we've tried to sort of expand upon these with some of the uses that we have come up with based on our discussions with the client and user groups, and really building this in a sustainable way. And when we say sustainable, it's not just your energy and water, but when you make a more walkable campus, you are building a more sustainable campus, because you are having less dependency on cars. You are building a campus where people are walking and are truly connected. And again, transportation fits into this. It's an integral component to the plan, and we have utilized their inputs along with many others to sort of build and consolidate a concept plan that stresses connectivity. It stresses infill opportunities and ways to really build the pedestrian experience on campus. And with that comes a proposed open space plan that we've tried to ensure carries through. And with an open space plan, you have to activate it. You have to make people feel that they connect with it, and this speaks to an art strategy that we've developed. It works with a signage strategy. All of this goes hand in hand with creating a comfortable public environment. And of course, in the evenings, the temperature is a lot more conducive for that type of activity, so lighting, exterior lighting, is an important aspect of that. So some of our integration strategies. It's looking at where we can actually provide infill opportunities to build this connective tissue. It's cheaper. It builds for a more conducive environment. Some of these spaces would be very well used. We've also produced interior and exterior pathways. So there's a whole sort of network of interior pathways that buildings have. They can be connected and stitched together to form a greater network. And again, this is just a rough collage showing you how some of this may look. We can propose relocatable amenity units that can be taken along on trucks and placed so that they can provide this retail and amenity use for the public. We've mapped a lot of constraints on the campus, what could work better, and we've tried to address these in a holistic manner. We've tried to build on view lines, sight lines, so that you actually build a cohesive strategy that works with showcasing the architectural fabric on the campus, the existing land use fabric on the campus in a cohesive manner. And some of this include understanding walkability. It ensures how do people park their car and walk to the various facilities like QFIS or Al-Shakab or to the residences. These are just some of the strategies that we've illustrated. Again, we took a lot of time to map some of these opportunities and constraints and then really build upon them in terms of understanding how can you allocate land use and design interventions in key nodes and key areas. And we've tried to do this in sort of imaginative and innovative manners. This is the P10 district that shows you how potentially some of these unplanned and undeveloped areas may look. Again, providing views to Doha and to the campus. And that's sort of a little cut of where we're at. Thank you.